Kesubos. Hey, Aleph. Although they said a virgin collects 200 zuz and a widow collects 100, if she wishes to add even 10,000 zuz, he may add. If he became widowed or divorced either after Erison or after Nisuin, she collects all. Rav Elazar ben Azariah says after Nisuin, she collects all. After Erison, a virgin collects 200 zuz and a widow 100, because he wrote it for her only on the condition of marrying her. Rav Yehuda says, if he wishes, he may write a virgin a contract of 200 zuz, and she writes, I have received from you 100, and for a widow 100, and she writes, I have received from you 50 zuz. Rav Meir says, anyone who undertakes to give a virgin less than 200 or a widow less than 100, the intimacy is an illicit intimacy. A virgin is given 12 months from the time her husband has asked her to provide herself, and just as a woman is given, so is a man given to provide himself. A widow is given 30 days, and at the time arrived that they were not married, they eat of his food, and they may eat of truma. Reb Tarfon says she is given all of it from truma, and Reb Akiva says half ordinary food and half truma. Okay.
Gimel, yeah, Gimel's you still.
I'm sorry?
Gimel is still you.
Still really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yavan does not confer upon his sister-in-law the right to eat of truma if she had spent 6 months before her husband and 6 months before the Yavam, and or even all of them before her husband, less 1 day that she spent before the Yavam, or in all of them before the Yavam, less 1 day than she spent before her husband, she may not eat of truma. This is the original ruling. The court that came after them said a woman may not eat of truma until she enters the chuppah.
Okay. All right, Mishna Dalet. So here, let's just take a moment to say that one of the things that, one of the trade-offs that happens in a marriage typically is that the husband is entitled to anything that his wife makes. Okay, she goes up and earns, and then she's then the money belongs to him. But
I'm sorry, did you say half of what she makes or all of it?
All of it.
Okay.
All of it, depending on what but that's sort of the classic marriages where anything that she makes, if she's sewing or weaving or whatever, it all belongs to him. But that is part of a trade-off because he is obligated to feed her, to sustain her, and that includes like looking after her medical expenses, etc. Okay. So that's kind of the trade-off. There are three trade-offs that you have in the marriage, and it's actually quite an easy mnemonic. That the woman is entitled to mazonos, which is in exchange for maaseh yadeha. So the men's go together. Mazonos for maaseh yadeha. Then there's the pidyon, is for the peiros. So the fact that the husband is enjoying the peiros of his wife's property and whatever she brought into the marriage, okay, those peiros are in exchange for the pidyon in case she is ever kidnapped and he must ransom her. Okay? And then there's the kesuba for the kavura, so that if that he will inherit her kesuba, even though he's given her kesuba in case they get divorced. But if they don't get divorced, if she predeceases him, then he inherits the kesuba. So the whole nadunya and whatever that the father-in-law gave, that all those gifts, they all come to him. But that's in exchange for the fact that he's going to bury her. So all the expenses for her burial must be taken care of by him. So those are your three trade-offs. Now, what they can do, and I think probably you find most modern marriages have a situation where the woman says, "Look, don't give me mazonos and don't take my maaseh yadai. Right? I'll work, and whatever I earn is mine, and I'll feed myself."
Yeah.
So that's and then there's of course the sort of more, there's the kind of to get legalistic about prenuptial contracts where you've got where you get married in community of property, or you get married with if an accrual system, that whatever you came into the marriage with remains yours, but whatever you earn now becomes a joint thing, and so it's a so. At any rate, we're talking here in our Mishnah actually. There's a lot of parish on this, but it seems that the situation we're talking about in our Mishnah is where the wife said, "Don't sustain me. I'll work for myself, and I will keep and whatever I earn is mine."
Mhm.
Okay. Now, what happens is that the husband decides that he's going to be makdish what his wife is making, and she says, "Look, you have no rights to it because it's mine. So you can't be makdish something that's not yours."
Right.
So the first sentence is Hamakdish Masa Yade Ishto Hareze Osa V'Okeles. She carries on. She carries on working. She treats it as if he did nothing because he has no power to be makdish her Masa Yadeha if she is her Masa Yadayim. If she has already waived she's waived the mazonas, so she keeps the Masa Yadayim. Hamosar. Now, what is left over? Now, this is talking about where she has earned and saved up money, and then she dies. So now this money has fallen to the husband, who already has said, "I'm makdish it. It's going to the Beis Hamikdash." Rabbi Meir Omer Hekdesh. So Rabbi Meir says, "Yeah, okay." So he didn't know. It was there was a pending chalos of the hekdesh until his wife died. If his wife would die before him, and therefore the money is now hekdesh, and he has to give it to the Beis Hamikdash. Rabbi Yochanan Hasanda Omer Chulin. He says, "Nonsense. This is not this." When he said it, it was a davar shelo ba'al olam. It wasn't his. So it's considered ki'ilu. It's something that doesn't exist. You can't be makdish something that doesn't yet exist, and expect that that's going to be effective. So, for example, if somebody buys a cow and he says he says the firstborn child, the first animal that this child gives birth to is hekdesh. Okay, aside moving aside from the forest, forget about the forest. Let's say we knew it had already given birth before. This is the next calf that this cow bears is hekdesh, and then the cow is born. It doesn't automatically become hekdesh. Now there's the thing of lo yachel devaro. He's going to have to keep his word, but the calf does not automatically become hekdesh because it didn't exist at the time that he said it. Okay, and that's what Rabbi Yochanan Asandli is saying, is that making his wife's property hekdesh doesn't work because it's not his.
Not his. It's not theirs.
And even though she dies now, and he inherits from her, it doesn't automatically become hekdesh. And the halacha follows Rabbi Yochanan Asandli that it does not become automatically hekdesh.
Because it didn't exist at the time.
It effectively didn't exist. He did not have the power to declare it hekdesh at the time.
And if he said that, and the cow gave birth, and the cow was a stillborn, calf, or it didn't live or anything.
The seal on my copy is.
Oh.
Okay. Look, you'll have to live with my coffee stains in my shirt. I'll change after this anyway. I'm going to gym.
Okay, don't worry. I didn't see a thing.
Oh, look at this. Seal is completely out.
But
Oh, that's annoying. That's seriously annoying. Okay, I'll just have to drink it straight from the cup and forget the top. Right.
So if he said he said this cow in hekdesh, and then the cow isn't alive, the cow is dead, or whatever. So he's stuck there.
Because he made a declaration. If you want to say lo yachel devaro, that's kind of like a question of harezu hekdesh. If you're talking about, then you would say, okay, so this thing died. So the hekdesh died. Big deal. If that was the case. But what we're effectively saying, you're saying what they're effectively saying anyway is that the halacha is that you can't declare hekdesh on something that doesn't yet exist.
Right. Okay. All right.
Okay. Eilu melachos she'isha osa lebala. So here are the things that a woman is expected to do for her husband. Tochenes ve'ofa u'mechabeses. She must grind and bake and do laundry. Mevasheles, and she must cook. U'menika espenan, and she must nurse his son. Matzas lo mita, and she must make his bed. Ve'osa b'tzemer, and she must be able to work with wool. Ichnisa lo shivcha achas. Okay, so now what happens if she comes into the marriage with one eved in her, or shivcha in her nedunya, so that now she's bringing a servant into the house who can do some of the work for her. Lo tochenes v'lo ofa v'lo mechabeses. So the first three malachos she now delegates to her shivcha, and the husband can't tell her to do it. She'll say, "Let my shivcha do it."
All right.
If she brings in a second one, then cooking and nursing also drop off the radar. Then if she brings in three slaves, then she doesn't have to make his bed and she doesn't have to work with wool. So what's left from this list? Well, actually nothing. There are a whole bunch of unsaid things that are left out of the Mishnah. Various little household tasks like pouring his cup and wait, let's just see what were the other things. They are pouring his cup and other things of affection or whatever that she's supposed to be doing. That's what's left. So what the Tana Kama comes and says is that if she brings in a fourth shivcha into the relationship, then what can she do? She sits on a cushion and enjoys the good life. Okay, so she doesn't have to do anything. Rabbi Eliezer disagrees. He says, even if she comes into the relationship with 100 slave girls, the husband can still ask her to do work with wool, and he can force her to work with wool. Idleness is going to bring her to perversion. And he's got to give her stuff to keep her busy. And just speaking personally, I know that when my wife has gone through her periods of unemployment, I've been like, I've said to her, just pay someone so that you can go and work for them, because she goes absolutely mad at home. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, "Af hamadir es ishto milasos melacha yotzi v'yiten kesubasa." So if you have some guy who, by force of vow, prevents his wife from going out and doing work, that's grounds for divorce, and he has to give her a kesubah. Because the idleness that she would experience will drive her mad.
Okay. By the way, you said something in the beginning of the Mishnah. I don't think you meant it that way. I'm sure you didn't. You said that she has to. One of the things that she has to nurse her son, but I think you meant just nurse a child, whether a boy or a girl.
Nurse her child.
Right, because you said nurse her son. So, but I don't think you meant it that way. So.
Right, it's just any child. Yes,
okay.
not a son, a daughter as well. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Right, but she can't be forced to nurse a child of a different mother.
Mm-hmm.
She can, right, and if she's got a nursemaid, then she can say, well, fine, let the nursemaid do it, or nowadays baby formula.
Right.
Okay. So if some guy has an argument with his wife and he takes a neder of not having relations with his wife, grounds for divorce according to everyone, but there's a machlokes beis Hillel beis Shammai as to how long we give him to get hataras nadarim before we force him to divorce her.
Grounds for divorce from the divorce from the wife.
As opposed to
he's going to divorce her. He took this vow.
He took a vow. Look, divorce is always in the hands of the husband. There's just a question of now that the wife would come and complain and say he's taken a neder, he won't have relations with me. And the court will say, okay, you are obligated to give her a divorce now.
So he has an obligation to have relations with her, as we learned.
Right.
the sale of this one to that one, they were different things. But so I thought maybe it would be the wife would say, listen, he's not doing what he's supposed to do. So
Yeah.
right, okay.
Right. So it turns out, so if there's an eder, there's a machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says 2 weeks. Shtei Shabbosos. He's got 2 weeks grace period to get a hataras nadarim.
Mhm.
Okay. Beis Hillel omrim Shabbos achas. Beis Hillel on more machmir, and we saw this one actually in Eduos not so long ago. That this is one of the cases where Beis Hillel is more machmir. So he only gets 1 week, and then we force him to divorce. Now, since we're mentioning the husband's obligation to give to do his conjugal duties with his wife, we now talk about different categories of husbands and how often they're allowed to, how long a husband is allowed to go away without his wife's permission. They can go without their wife's leave for 30 days. They can go away. Workers can go away for a week at a time. And the conjugal pleasure that the Torah obligates a husband to give his wife in the Torah, it depends again on the nature of his work. What's a tayal? This is basically how to explain. This is a person who is unemployed. He's in good health and but he just doesn't have work at the moment. So there if his wife so desires, he has to pleasure her every day. Workers twice a week. The donkey drivers once a week. I guess because they're out on the road a lot. And the camel drivers are obviously going on much greater distances. Camels are distance animals as opposed to donkeys, which are just sort of local. So he only has an obligation once a month. Now this is a sailor.
Yeah.
That is showing. So basically, people who are traveling out of their houses for a long time, he must return home once in 6 months for his wife, Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. And this is the halacha. It's mentioned. It's mentioned as Divrei Rabbi Eliezer because I guess he was the one who was mechadish it. However, there are people who are colleague with him on the matter of the Talmidim. The Chachamim say that they can go out. So it's in the Torah shelo b'shus neshem afilu l'shnatayim u'l'shalosh shanim. So the Chachamim argued with Rabbi Eliezer that a Talmid can go away for several years if he wants without his wife's permission, and that is and in fact he says that's the halacha. That's what's passed in Rambam, and it seems that may have been. I'm not sure if that's what Rabbi Akiva did. He probably got his. In fact, we know from the story of him and his wife that it was with her permission that he went away for 7 years and then 14 years. So yeah.
They have the men have this obligation, but the obligation happens to come out when they return home, and that's the week that she's Anita, so that pushes it off again. Right.
Can you do?
Yeah. Okay, Gimel Aleph.
Yeah.
Okay. These are maidens who are entitled to a fine. One who is intimate with a mamzeris, a Nisonite, or a Kuthin. Likewise, one who is intimate with a proselyte, a captive, or a slave, who were ransomed, converted, or emancipated under the age of 3 years and 1 day. If one is intimate with his sister, his father's sister, his mother's sister, his wife's sister, his brother's sister, his father's brother's wife, or was a menstruate, they are entitled to a fine. Although they are liable to karet, they are not liable to the death penalty indicated by the court. And these are not entitled to a fine. One who is intimate with a proselyte, a captive, or a slave who were ransomed, converted, or emancipated above the age of 3 years and 1 day. Rabbi Yehuda says a captive who is ransomed is still considered in a state of piety, even if she is of age. One who is intimate with his daughter, his daughter's daughter, his son's daughter, his wife's daughter, his son's daughter, or daughter's daughter, they are entitled to the fine because he is liable for his life. For his death penalty is in the hands of the court, and anyone who is liable for his life does not pay money. It doesn't pay money before it is said, but there is no fatal injury that he shall be punished. A maiden who was betrothed and then divorced from Yosef Galian says this is not entitled to the fine. Eva says she is entitled to the fine and her fine belongs to her.
Right. Yeah, and we had that whole discussion about
Right.
why does it go to her? So it seems like that's like a particular limit that Rabbi Akiva has, that it comes to her when she's divorced from Eresin.
Right.
But nonetheless, he agrees that the boshes and the tsar and go to the father.
Okay.
Yeah. Vamos.
Hey, Dalit. Rabbi Shua said, I have heard that the Cyrus performs Chalitza and the Chalitza is performed with his wife. And I have also heard that the Cyrus does not perform Chalitza and that the Chalitza is not performed with his wife. And I cannot explain it. Rabbi Akiva says, I will explain it. The person rendered a Cyrus by act of a man performs Chalitza, and Chalitza is performed with his wife because he had a period of suitability. The congenital Cyrus does not perform Chalitza, and Chalitza is not performed with his wife because he had no proof of suitability. But Eliezer says, not so. Rather, the congenital Cyrus performs Chalitza, and Chalitza is performed with his wife, since he may be cured. The person rendered by a Cyrus, an act of man, does not perform Chalitza, and Chalitza is not performed with his wife, since he cannot be cured. Rabbi Yeshua ben Spatzeres testified about Ben Megusis, who lived in Yerushalayim. It was a person rendered a Cyrus by act of man, and Yibam was performed with his wife, supporting Rabbi Akiva's statement. The Cyrus does not perform Chalitza or Yibam. Similarly, the Alonis does not perform Chalitza, nor may be taken in Yibam. The Cyrus who performed Chalitza with his Yavama did not prohibit her. If he cohabitated with her, he prohibited her, because it was an illicit cohabitation. Similarly, with an Alonis. If the brothers performed Chalitza with her, they did not prohibit her. And if they cohabitated with her, they prohibited her because her cohabitation with her is illicit. A congenital Cyrus, who was a Kohen, who married the daughter of a Yisrael, entitles her to eat Truma. Reb Yossi and Reb Shimon say an androgynous Kohen who married the daughter of a Yisrael entitles her to eat Truma. Reb Yehuda says a Tumtum who was opened and found to be a male cannot perform Chalitza since he is considered a Cyrus, and the androgen may marry, but he may not be taken in marriage. Reb Eliezer says cohabitation with the androgen is punishable by stoning as with a male. Okay. Right. You have Sukkah. Gimel Yud Gimel. On the first day of the festival that fell on the Sabbath, all the people would bring their lulav into the synagogue. On the morrow, they would awaken early and come. Everyone would recognize his own lulav and take it, for the sages said, a man cannot fulfill his obligation on the first day of Sukkot with a lulav belonging to his friend, but on the other days of Sukkot, a man can fulfill his obligation with a lulav belonging to his friend. Reb Yossi says that the first day of Sukkot fell on Shabbos and one forgot and carried the lulav out into the public domain. He is exempt, for he carried it out with permission. A woman may accept the lulav from her son or from her husband and return it to the water on the Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda said, on the Shabbos we return it, on the festival we add water, and during the intermediate days of the festival we change the water. A minor who knows how to wave is obligated to take the lulav. The question comes, he carried the lulav out into public domain, but he's not it was on Shabbos.
Yeah, if it was on Shabbos, so the question is whether you're chayav or not.
I'm sorry. The question is,
you're not allowed. Nobody said that you're allowed to carry the lulav around in the Rishos Harabim on Shabbos. Right. But the question is, are you chayav or not?
Right. Here it says that he carried it out without permission and is exempt.
But he's pater. He's pater because it's according. That was Rabbi Yossi, right?
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
So he said it was. He said because it was involved in a mitzvah. I'm not sure. I don't remember what his limit is. Why he says that you'd be passive for doing it. Okay.
Trumos. We have Test. Right. Test. Which one do you have?
Yeah, test.
Test. Okay. If a doubt of uncleanliness arose concerning a jar of truma, Reb Eliezer says if he was lying in an exposed place, he should put it in a hidden place.
Hold on, no. Test. That's 8, 9.
Oh, 8, 9. Okay.
Yeah.
8, 9. Okay. If a jar was broken in the upper part of the press and the lower part is unclean, Reb Eliezer and Reb Yeshua agree that he can save it from one clean revi'it, he should save it. But if not, Reb Eliezer says, let it descend and become unclean, but let him not make it unclean with his hands. So too, if a jar of oil was upset, Reb Eliezer and Reb Yeshua agree that it can be saved, that if he can save it from one clean revi'it, he should save it. But if not, Reb Eliezer says, let it descend, be absorbed, but now let him gather it up with his hands. Regarding both this and that, Rabbi Yeshua said, this is not the truma which I am bidden to render unclean, only which I may not eat, and which may I not render unclean. If he was passing from one place to another with loaves of truma in his hands, and a non-Jew said to him, give me one and I shall render it unclean, and if not, I shall render it all unclean. Rabbi Elliot says, let him render all unclean, and let him not give him one to render unclean. Rabbi Yeshua says, let him place one before him on a stone. Okay. Olios. Okay. Yud Aleph. If there is a skylight that is the size of a square handbreadth in a house, and there is tumah in the house, whatever is directly opposite the skylight remains tahor. If the tumah is directly opposite the skylight, the house remains tahor. Whether the tumah is in the house or directly opposite the skylight, a person who places his foot above the skylight combines the tumah. If part of the tumah is in the house and part of if it is opposite the skylight, the house becomes tameh, and whatever is directly opposite the tumah also becomes tameh. If the skylight is smaller than a square handbreadth and there is a tumah in the house, whatever is directly opposite the skylight remains tahor. And if the tumah is directly opposite the skylight, the house remains tahor. If the tumah is in the house and a person places his foot above the skylight, the person remains tahor. If the tumah is opposite the skylight and a person places his foot above the skylight, the mayor declares him tameh. However, they come and say, if the tumah preceded the foot, the person becomes tameh, and if the foot preceded the tumah, he remains tahor. Rabbi Shimon says, if 2 feet, one above the other, preceded the tumah, and then the first person removes his foot while the second person's foot remains in place, the second person remains tahor, but because the first foot preceded the tumah. If the part of the tumah is in the house and part of it is opposite the skylight, the house becomes tameh, and whatever is opposite the tumah also becomes tameh. These are the words of Reb Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says the house becomes tameh, but whatever is opposite the skylight remains tahor. And Rabbi Yossi says that the tumah is large enough that when it's divided in half, it contaminates both the house and whatever is opposite the tumah, they are both tameh. If not, the house becomes tameh, and whatever is opposite the tumah is tahor. Chest base. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava and Rabbi Yehuda ha-Kohen testified concerning a minor, the daughter of a Yisrael who married a Kohen, that she may eat truma once she has entered the kuppah, even though her marriage has not been consummated. Yossi the Kohen and Rabbi Zechariah ben Katsav testified concerning a young girl who was given a pledge in Ashkelon, and the family therefore distanced her. However, her witnesses testified regarding her that she had not secluded herself and she had not been violated. The Kohen said to the family, if you believe she was given as a pledge, believe as well that she did not exclude herself with an idolater and was not violated. And if you do not believe that she did not exclude herself and she was not violated, do not believe that she was given as a pledge. Rabbi Shua and Rabbi Yehuda ben Basara testified concerning the Isa widow, that she is permitted to marry into kahuna, and that the Issa family is permitted to render tameh or tahor to distance her or to bring her closer. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said to them, we accept your testimony, but what can we do about this in practice? And when Yochanan ben Zakkai had agreed not to seek courts for this purpose, for the Kohanim will heed you to distance, but not to bring close. Rabbi Yossi ben Yodzeh, the leader of Sarida, testified about the ayal grasshopper, that it is tahor, and he testified about the beverages at the temple's butchering place that are tahor. And he testified that one who touched the corpse is tameh, and they called him Yossi, the permitter.
That's a good one to remember.
Tomorrow we're going to finish. Yeah, tomorrow we finish.
Yeah, see them at too.
Yeah, Idios tomorrow. We go to Misa, correct?
Oh, yeah. After what?
We have to Idios. We finish tomorrow.
We finished 8 years tomorrow. Oh, okay. About the Zara.
What is that? Okay. Okay, that's my favorite. No, not really. Not really. Okay, go change your shirt, Joel. All right.
Thank you very much. I'm going to change it. Into
Actually, you're working from home. Nobody will notice.
I work. We have Zoom on video.
Okay. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.
Yes, bye.